Mario Saint-Supery will spend 6 weeks playing for the Spanish national team this summer. So is that a good thing or a bad thing for Gonzaga?
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome into the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. Drew Timme's unusual post-game attire made headlines in the NBA Summer League. On Tuesday, we'll talk about that. The Pac-12 and Mountain West are still fighting. Mediation did not work. So we'll talk about what the update is there, what this potentially means for Gonzaga and the conference. But before we get to all of that, we're going to start with another update on Gonzaga's newest player, 19-year-old Spanish guard Mario Saint-Supery, who did not get to campus and sign his financial aid agreement until June 30th. So we've kind of been talking about how Mark Few expects him to play a big role this year, and there's excitement about what he's going to bring to the team, but that he's kind of late getting in and getting into the mix because of how long it took for him to officially sign everything and come over to the United States. Now there's another wrinkle to that situation for Saint-Supery and Gonzaga, as it was revealed on Wednesday that Mario Saint-Supery has been added to the Spanish national team for the 2025 EuroBasket competition. This is the senior men's national team for Spain. This is not like a U20 or U19 event. This is the big kahuna. This is a team with NBA players, current, former NBA players on the roster. So it is an incredibly big deal that a 19-year-old player in Saint-Supery is considered good enough to be on this roster and invited to join this team. The training camp for Spain's national team begins on July 28th, and the tournament will take place between August 27th and September 14th, with games in Finland, Poland, Cyprus, and Latvia. So Mario Saint-Supery is going to be gone, likely based on travel days and things of that nature, somewhere in the ballpark of July 26th or 27th through mid-September, September 15th, 16th, something like that, depending on how they do and traveling and all of that stuff. But again, Saint-Supery is joining a team now that includes Santi Altama. It includes Willie and Juancho Hernan Gomez, all former or current NBA players. So he's going to play with NBA talent against NBA or high-level European talent this summer, but he's going to once again be away from Mark Few and the Gonzaga Bulldogs. This is the second time already for Saint-Supery that he has joined the senior national team. Again, he's just 19 years old and has already been a part of this team now for a second time. He was with them in the FIBA EuroBasket qualifiers back in 2024, and he didn't play much. 3 points per game, 2.7 assists, 1.7 boards. He played 56 total minutes, so barely more than one full game of basketball is worth of minutes in that time. And frankly, he probably won't play a ton for the senior men's national team this time around either. Obviously, a late addition to the roster, replacing Lorenzo Brown, who stepped away for personal reasons. So a last-minute addition to the roster, a super young player. You're not expecting him to go out there and play a big role, play a bunch of minutes right away, but he's going to gain extraordinary experience, not only setting himself up to be a big part of Spain's senior national team going forward, potentially as soon as 2028 for the Olympics in Los Angeles. I would not be surprised if a player who joined the senior national team at 18 in 2024, and again as a 19-year-old in 2025, that seems like a player who's on the trajectory to be on that national team roster for the Olympics in a couple of years. So this is, again, a monumental opportunity for Mario Saint-Supery to represent his country on a national stage in an incredibly cool environment while gaining experience that you cannot gain from playing summer college basketball, like from, what you would be doing in Spokane during that time period. This is obviously an unbelievably unique and incredibly cool experience that will make Mario Saint-Supery better at basketball, competing against 30-year-olds, competing against NBA players, competing, while wearing the name of your country on your chest. It's an added kind of juice. It's an added kind of motivation of sorts for players. And I think that all of that will make Mario Saint-Supery better. but it also takes him away from the valuable time that he would gain working with Gonzaga's coaching staff, working with his teammates, learning the offense, learning the defense, learning his teammates' style of play, heck, learning the United States culture and customs and what to do in Spokane and what to do at Gonzaga. Like, there's so many elements to not being around the team. And we had a lot of these conversations, not only about Saint-Supery when, we finally found out when he was officially going to arrive on campus, but also these conversations are happening with Tyon Grant Foster as well, who is currently waiting for NCAA waiver to approve him. He's waiting to get a waiver approved so that he can be eligible to play for Gonzaga this upcoming season. The general expectation is that Tyon Grant Foster will have his waiver approved, but every single day that goes by where that does not happen, Grant Foster is unable to play with Gonzaga. He's been working out. He's been playing with other teammates. He's been working out at Grand Canyon. He was working out in Las Vegas and working out in Kansas City, his hometown. So it's not like he's going to be out of game shape, but he's not getting that experience around his teammates, around his coaches, getting that same kind of camaraderie built with the team. Now, Mario Saint-Supery will only have a couple, maybe a week plus from now until when he heads out to go join this team for training camp, and he won't get back until about 3 weeks before craziness in the kennel. And I'm not saying that this is a bad decision by Mario Saint-Supery, and I'm not saying this is something the coaching staff should have warned him against doing or prevented him from doing, or the craziest situation should have not pursued him because of none of that. But it is, I think, in some ways unfortunate. I think it's a long-term benefit for Mark Few and Gonzaga. And I say long-term doesn't necessarily mean like years from now. It means maybe even just a few months from now, even the middle of the season, late in the season. I think the experience he gains from participating in this event and representing his country and playing against older players, I think that experience will pay off for, of course, Mario Saint-Supery and also for Gonzaga. But short-term, it's not great. I don't think there's really any other way to look at this. We can be incredibly happy for Mario. We can be excited that we have another player who's going to potentially be playing on the world stage. One of my favorite things last year was the amount of different Gonzaga players in the Olympics. You had Kelly Olynyk and Andrew Nembhard representing Canada, Rui Hachimura for Japan, Filip Petrusev for Serbia. Like, it's so cool that Gonzaga has players representing their home countries all across the world. It's one of my favorite things, and Mario Saint-Supery likely going to join that group. But in terms of his ability to be ready to contribute to this team as a true freshman this season, missing 6 weeks between late July and mid-September is problematic. He will not be as comfortable running Gonzaga's offense. He will not be as comfortable and familiar with his teammates. Where does Braden Huff like to catch the pass? Where do the shooters, Adam Miller and Steel Venters, like, where do they like to catch the ball? How do they move without the ball? How does this player react to this? How does this player set screens? Like, various kind of intricate things that take some time. We saw Ryan Nembhard, who had an incredible 2-year career at Gonzaga. The first half of his first season, it's not that he was bad, but he wasn't nearly as good as he was for the last 1.5 years. Not nearly as good. I think it's part of the reason that Gonzaga was able to pursue and convince Braden Smith to come to campus and redshirt for a year, because they've sold him on, you are going to be the guy and you're going to be ready right away. You're going to have a whole year of time to get comfortable with this offense, to learn from Ryan, to be ready to roll. And I think that that's a good thing for Gonzaga, especially now where Saint-Supery, he's not going to necessarily be as ready to do that, to take over. Mark Few mentioned we talked about this on Tuesday's episode. He mentioned that Saint-Supery is going to play right away and that they believe he's somebody who has the size to play off the ball and, of course, on the ball. He said he's a true point guard, but we could envision playing him off the ball. To me, this may be an even stronger indication that a lot of Mario Saint-Supery's early run with Gonzaga could come off the ball. Now, Braden Smith's not going to play 40 minutes a game, and when he's off the floor, Saint-Supery is the very obvious, logical choice to play point guard. But I could see a situation where if they do feel like Saint-Supery needs some more time, or they're more comfortable with him off the ball early in his Gonzaga career, where maybe you have somebody like again, assuming he gets his waiver approved, you have Tyon Grant-Foster initiate the offense and kind of get things going. I honestly think Jalen Warley is sort of a dark horse backup point guard candidate for Gonzaga. He was a point forward at Florida State. He initiated the offense. I could see him kind of being your option there in a pinch as well. But I think that this does potentially slightly alter the plans for Gonzaga this upcoming season, just with Saint-Supery now being in a spot where all told, he'll have something like 6 weeks of just total time spent in the United States from late June till late July, about a month, and then about 3 weeks before craziness in the kennel, and then another 2 weeks, and then it's season time. So he's just not going to have spent a lot of time around this team, around the coaching staff in the United States, and with how often international players don't immediately make an impact for Gonzaga. I mean, even the best of the best ones, the Shemek Karnowskis, the Killian Tillys, the Filip Petrusevs, the Roni Turiafs, like most of those guys were not immediately impactful players as freshmen. Saint-Supery was kind of on a unique track to be somebody who played a bigger role as a freshman. And I still think that role is there, by the way. I'm not saying his playing time is going to be cut in half or anything because of this, but I do think that it alters just his ability to be immediately ready to play both point guard and shooting guard as a freshman if he's just not going to have spent that much time here in Spokane prior to the season getting going. Well, folks, switching gears, the Pac-12 and Mountain West could not come to a settlement after multiple months of mediation. So what now? We're going to talk about that coming up in just a second. But first, folks, the summer sports are in full swing, and so whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf out on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are out getting sunburned on the beach. You can use FanDuel to track your favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. So whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right out into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action. Gonzaga remains plus 3,500 odds to win the 2026 National Championship, or if you're feeling good about Graham Eke's odds of winning the Wooden Award, he is at plus 4,800 to do exactly that. And folks, if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, folks, segment 2, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast. And we are moving away from our conversation about Mario Saint-Supery, who is joining the Spanish senior men's national team for the EuroBasket competition this summer, to instead talk about the news that was effectively no news regarding the Pac-12 and Mountain West, who have been in mediation for a very long time, since back in May. The Pac-12 is suing the Mountain West over $55 million in reported poaching fees that the Mountain West is attempting to extract from the Pac-12 regarding, of course, the Pac-12 adding the 5 Mountain West schools: Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State, Colorado State, and Utah State. The mediation began in May. The deadline to come to some kind of settlement agreement was July 15th, so Tuesday. They did not come to an agreement at that time and have jointly requested a hearing on the pending motion to dismiss. This hearing will be September 9th. So here's what that all means. The Pac-12 was told by the Mountain West after signing the agreement to add the 5 member schools, or they signed a scheduling agreement with the Mountain West for football, and said, here's the deal. And at the time, after signing the scheduling agreement, which the Pac-12 was only Oregon State and Washington State at the time, and the Mountain West did kind of float them a lifeline by saying, here, we'll sign this agreement, have you schedule most of our teams for your opponents so that you're able to fill out your schedule and not have to buy a bunch of games when you don't have the money to do so. Part of that agreement, and this is not being disputed, but part of that agreement was a clause which basically said if the Pac-12 does attempt to poach any Mountain West schools, that they will have to make $10 million payments to the Mountain West for the first team to leave. And then each payment subsequently would be an additional $500,000. So you pay $10 million for San Diego State, you pay $10.5 million for Boise State, $11 million for Utah State, et cetera, et cetera. This was all on top, by the way, of these $17 million exit fees that the schools themselves were responsible for. When a school is responsible for paying an exit fee to a conference, typically the conference agrees to pay the exit fee for the school. So in this case, basically, the Mountain West was asking for $55 million, also the $17 million per school. It was just a huge amount of money that the Mountain West is trying to extract from the Pac-12 from this agreement. Here's the statement from the Pac-12. Pac-12 says, quote, the Pac-12 remains committed to moving forward with legal action in response to the Mountain West's attempt to impose so-called, quote, poaching penalties, provisions we believe are unlawful and intended to obstruct our ability to act in the best interests of our student athletes and member institutions. So it is basically an antitrust lawsuit is what they are pursuing at this point, saying that it was unlawful to even put into effect or put into the contract these $10 million poaching fees. The Mountain West is, of course, arguing that the Pac-12 is suing to avoid their legal obligations, basically saying, we offered you a lifeline, you signed this. I mean, their direct quote, the Pac-12 willingly signed the scheduling agreement with full knowledge of the contractual provisions and is attempting to avoid its legal obligations. The Mountain West will aggressively protect the interests of our member institutions and is fully prepared to hold the Pac-12 accountable. So now what? What happens now? Well, like we said, a joint request on the pending motion to dismiss will be on September 9th. The general belief is that settlement is still the likely outcome. This is likely not going to go to trial. It is likely going to eventually be settled between the two sides. The hope was that would happen in mediation, and we would not have to get to the point where we're having this motion to dismiss and another court case on September 9th. But there's still it's still pretty unlikely that this will go fully in trial, jury, all that good stuff. I don't think we're going to get to that point. It seems much more likely that it'll eventually be settled. The Mountain West loses a crap ton of leverage if that motion to dismiss is denied. They're trying to get they're making a motion to say to the courts, hey, can you dismiss the Pac-12's lawsuit? If that gets denied, the Mountain West is really kind of SOL at that point, because it's pretty clear that any moves towards an actual trial or anything like that would not go very well for the Mountain West. In terms of what this means for Gonzaga, in the short term, not a ton. Longer term, I think a big thing to watch here is UNLV. UNLV committed to stay in the Mountain West and signed the grant of rights effectively because the Mountain West was promising them a huge windfall of cash, which they need. The UNLV's financials were revealed, and they're in dire straits. They basically, I think their AD directly said, we can't pay our football coach after 3 years of his contract. We're not going to be able to continue to pay him at that point. They were bleeding money very badly. And the Mountain West, in an effort to protect their conference after losing 5 members to the Pac-12, the Mountain West went to UNLV and said, we'll get you your money. We'll get you the amount of money that you need to stay in this conference to pay off your debts and to build a viable program. Just hang with us. Sign this deal. We'll get you your money. That's effectively what happened. And now, if the Mountain West does not win this, if they do not get this lawsuit dismissed, if the Pac-12 doesn't have to pay the $55 million in poaching fees, Mountain West doesn't have the money that they promised UNLV. They may find it somewhere else, but they're going to be cash poor if they have to do that. And if they can't do that, then UNLV is going to not get the money that they were told they were going to get for signing a grant of rights with the conference. Does that mean UNLV immediately jumps ship? Not necessarily. There's still complications with them doing that. They don't necessarily just immediately get out of the grant of rights in that case, but it could lead to them starting to look elsewhere. UNLV has made it clear that they believe that they're going to get an invitation to the Big 12. I don't know how seriously they actually believe that. It's been said and it's been kind of explained, but also, again, they're going to feel a lot less confident about something like that if this big windfall of cash is not arriving. So UNLV is the program to watch here. Pac-12 could win this lawsuit, not have to pay the poaching fees, and then turn around and be able to snag UNLV from the Mountain West. A little dirty, maybe. That's the nature of the game, though. That's just how it is at this point. In terms of UNLV's impact in the Pac-12, they haven't been great at basketball lately. I think Josh Pastner's a good hire for them. I think that they're a program that could turn it around and be a positive gain for Gonzaga specifically and for the Pac-12. I mean, even last year, they were 93rd at KenPom. That's between where Oregon State and Washington State finished. So it's not like they were terrible by any stretch. And they made a coaching change after that and are now bringing in a coach who's had some success at the college basketball level. So This is a team that's made 7 top 50 finishes in the KenPom era since 1997. This is a team that their overall program rating dating back to 1997 is 75th. For reference, St. Mary's is 76. Now, again, St. Mary's peaks have been much higher than UNLV's peaks. UNLV's peak was back around the time that I was born in the late 80s, early 90s, when they had Larry Johnson, Graham Mama, and Greg Anthony, and many other phenomenal players. They haven't been anywhere near that level in a long time. But Vegas is a booming market, and getting the opportunity to add them to the Pac-12, I think, would be a good thing for the conference. That's what I would be keeping an eye on. Air Force is the other team that's kind of all messed up in this, and I think if Air Force were to eventually try to leave the Mountain West, they're not coming to the Pac-12. They're going to the American Athletic Conference, which already features both Army and Navy. So I think that that's the likely move there. But UNLV is the team to keep an eye on here. And really, it's just like, the Pac-12 is now the conference that we're rooting for. Can the Pac-12 win this, save some money, be able to not have to pay huge chunks of change, which they don't want to do, and Gonzaga doesn't want them to do either. So it's a story that doesn't have a super direct connection to Gonzaga yet, because they're, of course, not part of this Mountain West kind of group of teams moving over. But it's a story to keep a close eye on, because it will have some down effects on Gonzaga once it's resolved in some fashion or another. Well, we're going to close out the show talking about Drew Timme, his off-the-court antics. Were on display Tuesday during a post-game autograph signing that had his family in literal disbelief. We're going to talk about that in just a second. All right, folks, segment 3, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast. And as we've done throughout the week, and we're going to continue to do here, we close out the show kind of just giving you your daily summer league update. And I continue to record these shows usually in the middle of one of Gonzaga's summer league games, so I won't be able to give you a full update, although there's only about 3 minutes left in Phoenix's summer league game where Caleb Battle has yet to see the floor. So by the end of the show, we may know if Battle ended up playing in this game or not. But I also have some updates for you from Tuesday. If you listened throughout all of Tuesday's show, I talked a little bit at the end about where Drew Timme and Anton Watson were at the very end of that game. But we ended up, they played a few more minutes, so I have full results from Tuesday's game. This was between the Knicks and the Nets. Anton Watson and Drew Timme squaring off, old friends, longtime friends. Drew Timme describes Anton as his best friend, so very cool that they got this opportunity to play against each other. Timme finished the game with 24 points, 10 boards, 5 assists, a steal, and a block in 31 minutes. He was 8 of 15 on his 2-pointers. He was 0 of 4 from the 3-point line, but he was 8 of 11 from the free throw line. Always good to see Drew shooting it well from the charity stripe, where he's historically struggled. Not as good to see Drew struggling from 3. I believe he was 3 of 10 coming into this game from the 3-point line, so now he's 3 of 14. You'd like to see him shoot a little better. Obviously, it's a small sample, but the outside shot is just, it's not a consistent thing for Drew at this point, unfortunately. But like I said, Drew talked about how much fun it was to compete against Anton after the game, so they were talking crap to each other in the game, and just fun to hear Drew talk about that. And I have to imagine cool for both of them to get those opportunities to represent the two big NBA teams in the state of New York. The reason that Drew went semi-viral after the game was that he was doing an autograph signing outside the Thomas & Mack Center, or outside the arena in the Thomas & Mack Center at UNLV's campus. And he was wearing a yellow T-shirt. A T-shirt that is a movie reference to the movie Predator, which is, I will be honest, something I learned today as I was getting ready for this show. His shirt said Sexual Tyrannosaurus Tobacco Company, Chewing Tobacco Company. And it just came across my Instagram feed, a video of Drew Timme, like kind of fake signing the camera. So it was like right in front of the camera. And I was like, what on earth is Drew Timme wearing? And again, describing what he's wearing doesn't really do it justice. You got to go find the clip, find the picture, something. It's a bright yellow T-shirt, picture of a T-Rex, says Sexual Tyrannosaurus Chewing Tobacco Company on it. Like I said, I looked it up from the movie Predator. To quote, it's Drew being Drew. I don't know. He was signing autographs in front of a whole bunch of kids, and that's the shirt that he was wearing. You got to love it. You got to love it. Drew is very authentically himself. And that is, I think, the truest way to describe him. The great Theo Lawson, the spokesman review, was there. He was in the building. He has some of the video clips of Drew Timme signing the autographs. He said in one of his posts that what happened is that Drew's father, Matt Timme, was on the phone with Drew's mom, Megan Timme, and he was on the phone. Drew came out wearing the shirt. Matt Timme said to Megan, The direct quote is right here. He said, you're never going to believe what shirt Drew is wearing, which makes, I love that a little bit more because it implies that they were aware that he had this shirt. Like, it wasn't like, oh, he's, it was like, you were never going to guess which of his t-shirts he's wearing. And you got to love Drew. He's trying to avoid swearing in post-game press conferences. Even though earlier I said that Drew talked about how him and Anton were talking crap to each other. That's not the word that he used. He's still not perfect at avoiding the swear words in the post-game press conferences. But I don't know how, if he's on your team, especially when he's dropping 24 and 10, how you cannot just absolutely adore this man who is, again, has never strayed from being exactly who he is and who he wants to be. And it's an admirable quality, even if it creates some pretty humorous situations for him, for his family who has to deal with it, for reporters who are not quite sure what he's going to say or avoid saying when he's talking to them too. It's just a fun all around situation. I'm so happy Drew's kind of back in the mainstream media with how he's performed these last few weeks in Summer League. Anton Watson, by the way, he finished that game, his best game in Summer League by far this season, with 12 points, 3 boards, and an assist in 22 minutes. He was a perfect 4 of 4 on his 2-point attempts. He was 1 of 3 from deep and 1 of 2 from 3 and 1 of 2 from the free throw line as well. Jeremy Jones played later that night for the Memphis Grizzlies, had 3 points and a board on 1 of 3 shooting from 3 in about 15 minutes per game. Jeremy has continued to be great defensively and a solid rebounder, has been shooting a lot of threes. I think he's knowing that that's the skill set he needs to possess and showcase in order to have any chance of being an NBA player down the line. He hasn't flashed it quite enough, I think, but he's been playing well, playing a lot of minutes for Memphis, and I would be surprised at this point if he's not a key piece for the Memphis Hustle, or at least a G League team this season. Summer League schedule moving forward. I'm recording this on about 4 p.m. on Wednesday Pacific time. So there's about 2.5 minutes left in a game between the Phoenix Suns and Minnesota Timberwolves. Caliph Battle, as of this recording, has not played. I think that's probably going to hold, as it's a 2-point game. And usually there's always 5 or 6 players every game who don't play. So this seems like the game where Caliph Battle is not going to play for Phoenix. We also have the Nets, Brooklyn, Drew Timme starting at 4:30 p.m. And then the Mavericks, Ryan Nembhard and Nolan Hickman at 5 p.m. So I'll have an update on how those guys end up performing for you on Friday's show. I'll also hopefully have some updates from the Thursday shows, or the Thursday games, which right now is Anton and the Knicks at 1:30 Pacific time, Jeremy Jones and the Grizzlies at 3 Pacific time, and then Ben Gregg and the Boston Celtics at 6 Pacific time. That's all on Thursday. We also know a few of the games on Friday. Up to this point, we had not known what teams were going to play because they were still waiting for the brackets to be finalized. But on Friday, both Dallas and the Nets, so that means that Nembhard, Hickman, and Drew Timme will all get a chance to play on Friday. Dallas, their game is at 1 p.m. Pacific time, and Brooklyn's game is at 3 p.m. Pacific time. More updates coming your way later this week on Locked On Zags as we finalize all of Summer League. But that's going to wrap it up for me today here on the show. Thank you so much to those of you who have made this show your first listen or your first watch of the day. Of course, I always want to give a special shout out to the everydayers and those of you hanging out in the Locked On Zags Discord channel, and those of you who have subscribed on YouTube. If you have not done so yet, just hit that little bell button on YouTube, get you subscribed, get you notified every time there's a new show. It's very much appreciated. Back with one more this week before getting you some more fun stuff next week. Got some guests lined up as I'll be out of town, so we'll do some pre-recording to get you some fun shows to close out the month of July. Thanks again, folks. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And of course, as always, go Zags.